Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Cuddle with Purpose, where we're going to be talking about today in the benefits of being submissive to your husband. The benefits of being submissive to your husband.
Mm-mm.
This is going to be a great topic of conversation because there has been a lot of opinions in regards to this topic. You've had men on their point saying that the problem is that you have women that don't know how to be submissive to their husband. Then on the other spectrum, you have women that are saying that guess what? Submissive? No, that means you controlling. That means you narcissistic. I can't deal with that type of foolishness because whoa, what you mean by submissive? What the hell? What in the
Right,
world you mean by being submissive, Negro?
bruh.
And we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about it on today's episode. And we're going to give our different meaning to the word submissive and what does it mean and how it relates into our marriage.
I agree.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I want to, UT to actually, you know, coming from a woman's perspective, right? I think it's
Mhm.
a perfect example of you as a woman, a strong black woman. I consider you an alpha female. Um,
Mhm.
what does submissive mean to you in our relationship, in our marriage?
Good question. I like how you tailored it to us because, of course, submission means something different to everybody. But in our
Absolutely.
marriage, I truly believe that being submissive is just being able to listen and hear you and relinquishing those reins and not necessarily allowing you, but being okay with you leading, being okay with us having a discussion about whatever it is that we are focused on at that moment and having you to follow through or for you to make the last say in how this is going to go, right? um I think that it comes down to just having respect and me respecting you as a leader, respecting you as the head of our household, respecting you as a man, respecting you as a father, respecting you as somebody who does have wisdom. Um, and I think that's the gist of it for me. I think it's about being able to listen, um, be able to relinquish some of that control that I would naturally have, and submitting to your thoughts, your ways, your ideas, all that stuff.
So let me ask you this. Do you feel by you saying those things that it takes away from your strength as a woman? Do you feel that it belittles you in such a way, or let me use the word, do you feel that it makes you weak as a woman? Because as I said, you're an alpha female. When I met you, you was in the military, in the Air Force. You actually been working for years. You was a go-getter. You was a person that even had the mindset is that, hey, I depend on me, myself, and I'm gonna get it done. I'm gonna get these coins. So when you came into a relationship with someone like me that is an alpha male, and we talked about this early on in our relationship as being, saying submissive and things of that nature and allowing me to lead. Do you feel that being submissive makes you weak in any way as a woman?
No, not at all. I think today, and I'll go back into my transition in that realm of submission. I think that it makes me more powerful. I think it allows me to be free in so many ways because I'm not trying to control things. I don't have to navigate in the same way that I did previously because I'm not a single woman.
Mhm.
I feel like it's nothing like having that covering, having that husband that you can lean on, that you can rely on, that you can look to. Because I don't want to always have the answers. I don't always want to have to figure it all out or to do this or to do that. I feel like if there's a is a fine line in being able to have a voice in the matter than having to actually go out and do it all on your own, you know? I there's nothing cute about that. You know, it's cute and fine when you are a single woman. I think it's cool to have an identity when you are married. I think it is very important that you have your personal, your purpose, your individual purpose. I think that that really needs to be established. But when it comes down to feeling weak, no, I don't feel weak at all. I feel even more powerful just because I have that support and that backing, and I can still be me without feeling like I gotta be like this all day long, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Because, you know, of course I'm a strong person, but you can be the muscle. I'm all right. I'm all right with that. I am okay with that. And somebody else may feel different, but you know, I feel like I still can be all the woman I want to be, you know?
Right. Right.
So yeah.
And what do you say, TT? Why do you feel though that there are women that don't like the word when they hear a man says being submissive?
I think
Why do
it's
you feel women don't like that terminology, or they, it's almost like it's a trigger for them? We're like, oh, what?
oh yeah. It was a trigger for me. It was a trigger for
Truth be
me.
told, yeah.
But I think it's because of our understanding of the word, right?
Mhm.
I think that the way that society has um, taken that word and ran with it, and it almost makes it appear as if you having to bow down to someone, or you're having to be belittled, or you're marginalized, or you're ignored, or you're ran over, or you're like the girl, you know, in Coming to America where you oh, 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 oh. Like that's not what submission is, right?
Mhm.
And I think it's been so much where it's not really so much about being submissive, but more of like men sometimes being conscrewed that this is their opportunity to be a tyrant or for them to be her superior in some type of way, and that there is no equality when it comes to submission. And because of that, that's why it's a trigger, because neither the men or the women don't truly understand what it means, right?
Mm.
I think people get that terminology caught up in the control of things,
Mhm.
you know, and not being able to have a voice. And I feel like because of that, that's why women don't like that word,
Mm.
because we have to have a voice. The
Right.
man may be the head, but we the neck. So we controlling the way that thing goes because we have powerful minds, we have intuition, we have wisdom as well. And sometimes that can be overlooked, that can be dismissed, that can be marginalized. And a lot of people are not here for that. when you don't have a man that truly understands what submission means. They can actually take advantage of that term, you know? And to be honest, if we're looking at, I guess, older marriages and relationships, and you see somebody um that is submissive, it wasn't just about, okay, she cooks, she cleans, but this is like you these letting these men get away with bullshit. So I'm a submit. That's also where submission has been construed. It's like you allowing your significant other to get away with things that they should not be doing. And so when women think about that word, those are the traumatic experiences that they are able to look to, because submission was thrown around in that moment. And so, if that's the definition that they know, it could be traumatizing. It could
Yeah.
be very traumatizing. So you're saying you want me to be submissive. So you saying you want me to allow you to run over me, to disrespect me,
Mm, mm,
to not allow me to live to my fullest potential, things like that. And so it's terrifying. It's scary. It's one of those things where, it's like I'm not quite sure if I want to be submissive, not knowing that that's not what being submissive is. But
mm.
because that's their experience of when that term was thrown out there, that's what their mind goes back to. And that's why it's a trigger.
You know what? When I looked up on the Google dictionary of submissive, Google says that submissive means the ready to conform to the authority or will of others, meekly obedient or passive. And some of the similar words used with submissive is compliant, yielding, accommodating. And I think it's something that's very important to understand. Not one word that said control when you're talking about
Right.
submissive. Not one word of when you're talking about control. And
Yeah.
I think, we have to make sure that when we're talking about far as a woman being submissive to her husband or being submissive to the man when they're in a relationship, I
Mhm.
think it's very important to take that role very seriously. And I think from a man perspective, for me, of course, when we talked about this, it was a little rocky at first, is because I feel when you coming into a relationship and you're telling a strong black woman is that, they've always have been in control of their own destiny. And we are having them to commit to a man, and when you're talking about them being submissive, I think it's very important that we understand that does not mean that you're controlling that woman. I
Right.
think as long as the man understands is that when they have a communication with the woman that they're with, I think it's very important to understand, like, give me this opportunity to lead. And I think from a man perspective, you have to take that role as a man, as a husband, as a father role seriously in making sure that you're leading that woman down the right path. Because I
Right.
think once you lose that respect, because it does come with respect,
Period.
it comes with respect. That woman must feel validated by you. That
Mhm.
woman must feel respected by you. And
Mhm.
if that woman doesn't feel or has a problem with you being submissive, then maybe it's something as a man that we should evaluate ourselves on what we are doing as a man, or what is the problem of with that woman. Okay, why you don't respect me as the man for you to be submissive to allow me to lead? And I feel if that is a problem, then I strongly recommend that man understand and start reevaluating the relationship, because eventually it's going to become a problem as that relationship moves forward?
Uh, I would agree with that, but I would also say that when he goes to evaluate, he has to evaluate himself.
Hmm.
He really has to look at where he's at,
Hmm.
who he is, his language, how he's talking and communicating,
Hmm.
and his character, his position, all of those things. And I think that oftentimes we've correlated the word submission also with finances and things
We
of
have.
that nature. And what I see every day is like, you have women who are gonna say, "Well, why should I submit?" And he ain't making no money, and he's not contributing to the cause, or he's not doing this, or he's not doing that. And I think that that's where there's a line where it gets really complex, right? Because when there's a financial strain or whatever, that's when everybody gets uncomfortable. That's when things go astray. And
Right.
so I think that that's where that conversation has to be had. And if that's a part of what's going to make the wife submissive, because she may feel otherwise. If the coins is low and she's bringing it in, should she still submit, or does that have anything to do with being submissive? Because it still goes down to just having respect, being meek, having grace, knowing how to speak to your husband, still
Right.
uplifting him, you know, still letting him know his value despite whatever season that they may be in. I think that that's a very important conversation. I also think it's a form of love too, you know?
Hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
one of the things I think.
I think you bring out some great points. I think from my upbringing, from a certain perspective, I saw some things that um, I did like, far as from my dad and growing up, and I also at the same time saw some things that I did not like, and I think it was something that was very unhealthy in a relationship, and I think some of that comes from how a man was raised and
Mhm,
also how a woman was raised, and it comes from the parenting, what I'm saying, on how they was raised growing up. And I think for me, it was a perspective where I saw my dad, who was an alpha male, um had a philosophy is that it's either my way or the highway, sometimes, a lot of times.
mhm,
And it did cause a lot of confusion within the household. And let me just tell you this, and I can only speak for myself, and my wife knows about my upbringing, because I think it was something that she found out for herself. But at the same token, it was some things that, when I was growing up and being raised, I was sheltered from a lot of things. I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that. And that's another form of submissive, but I would say submissive in the wrong way.
mhm,
And I think if you are a man or young man, and however your father raised you, and it was in a controlling way and it was toxic, I think
mhm,
it can hurt you as a man moving forward. Because see, what you're doing now is you can have some of that in your psyche, because what you saw your father did with your mother, you think that you can do that to the modern woman. And I
mhm,
think we have to come from a mindset, as sometimes as men, sometimes we can have the wrong definition by what we saw and how we was raised as young boys to be a man, that was not necessarily the healthy way that you should be moving into a relationship, especially when you're talking about leading a black woman or a strong black woman or a woman in general.
yeah. Now you said that. I think that is so good because we came from two different types of households, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And you, of course, you grew up in the house with your parents.
Mhm.
It didn't mean that there was any no dysfunction in that, but you had a different dynamics, right?
Mhm. Oh, it was some
And
dysfunction now. It was some it was
yes,
let's keep it 100. It was
right.
some I saw some things that was not healthy at all. And it really hurt me from a psychological perspective.
Hmm.
And it really hurt me inside because, you know, when you're talking about the word submissive, sometimes it could be a trigger word for me because I was, kind of forced into because was raised up in that home back in Casey, South Carolina, is that I was forced to be submissive to my dad. Let's think about this. Let's think about this where I'm going with it because by me being forced,
Hmm.
I actually grew a mindset to retaliate as I got
Mm,
older because I saw some things that I didn't like on based off on how he treated my mother on certain occasions. And I
right.
think when you're talking about being submissive, that's why I believe it can be a trigger for men, but it can also be a trigger for women and a man based off on some of it on how they was raised or the emotional trauma that they dealt with in their past relationships or
Hmm.
as a child growing up in the home.
Right. I like how you clear that. I think that and my thought is all over the place right now. I had like a million thoughts going through my mind. Um, I think that this is what I was gonna say. Because we grew up in two different households, I think that you, of course, you grew up in a house where your parents were married and there was like a submission that was there with your mother. But in my mind, this is what I was gonna say. I don't know if it necessarily was submission or maybe it was submission in that in a different way. I think it's more so when you go back to straight up control. Like that was
Mhm,
control.
mhm,
That was a whole dominating in a whole different way. There was his way or the highway, right? And I think that in my mind, that's not what submission is, right?
mhm,
Um, but in my household, it was a single mother. It was like in my family, it was like the women ran the show, even those that were in relationships, it was like they had the last say in how things ran, right?
mhm,
And so for me, that's how it was like that's how it's supposed to be. And even if you're in a relationship, things are still separate, or you still do your own thing and you handle your own business on the side, right?
mhm,
And so those were the things that I saw. And then when I got into a healthy marriage with a man that I actually wanted to submit to, and I actually understood it because of relationships that I had fostered over years with friends that have been married years prior to me, I understood that that was toxic too.
mhm,
I understood that, that thought process is little warped.
mhm,
And it's because they never had a man that was worth submitting to,
mm,
or at least that's what they thought. They didn't have a man that's worth submitting to. And I think that for me, it made it easy because one, you wanted to always get my input. Like that's just your nature. You always ask my input, always ask my opinion. At the end of the day, you have an immense respect level for me and who I am and what I contribute, and not contribute financially, but what I contribute mentally, emotionally. And I think that that is so vital to there being any type of submission in the relationship when it
Yeah.
comes down to finances and leading in that manner. Of course, we both contribute to, and bring to the table, but
Yeah.
we have that conversation, right?
Yeah.
And it's okay. I'll never forget having a conversation back when I was working years ago. And we had a few married women in the office, and then we had a few people that weren't married in the office. And they got it on the conversation of whether women should have share a bank account with a significant other, or if she should have an account on the side. And I'll never forget one of the girls coming in the office to ask me that question, and somebody who didn't even know just said, "Well, you already know. Tiara love her husband. They love
Mhm.
their relationship, so you already know they share a bank account. You already know he can go swipe a card and she can go swipe a card." I was just like, okay. But it was because she was taught, her philosophy was always have that secret account on the side and this on the side, and they can't know what's going on, because if they know what's going on, then they gonna try to make these moves, and it's real toxic, and that's how people have operated. And I
Yeah.
think that it goes back to also trust, because I think that submission has so much to do with trust.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to actually share some of the tweets about from different perspective on what people think about being submissive. You see, one person said, "No, it's not. Biblically, the wife submits." Um, then you see right here, this is a good one. This person said, "Relationships don't have to all be one way. Not all men want to dominate, and not all women want to be submissive. It depends on the personalities in the relationship. Maybe the woman may be more dominant, or they are both dominant at different times. No judge should force this." I think that's a very powerful
Yes,
statement. I think they really broke it down on submissive, and it goes back. I think we hit some great points. Is that it is some of it goes to how the person, what's the makeup of the individual. And I think
yeah,
for me, I always wanted to make sure that I wanted to give my wife a voice. Make
yeah,
sure that my wife feels invested, equally invested in the relationship as I am, because she has good discernment as well. And
hmm,
she makes me reconsider my thought processes and things, and made me a better person in making good decisions. And I think, it's at times where I may have discernment in certain things, better discernment than her, or where she submits to me. And there may be times where she may have better discernment with me, and I should be submissive into her train of thought. And it depends on the situation, but it also depends on that psyche of the person who you're with. And I think
hmm,
the person has to make a decision.
yeah,
Can I deal with this for the rest of my life? Is this something of a makeup of a person that's so dogmatic in being submissive, and then they're not willing to have a give and take, or I like the term reciprocity?
yeah, yeah. That's a good one.
Reciprocity. I think that's a great term to look at. And you, the individual, I strongly urge you to reevaluate the relationship if it's always going to be one sided, where you don't have a say so, or where you feel you can't communicate, and you may be more knowledgeable, or, more knowing in a certain situation. And if that spouse can't respect you enough to be able to be submissive to you in that point of time, then
Hmm.
that could be a problem.
Definitely. I think it just goes back to having a great sense of balance and peace in a household.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's where I've yielded even more into being submissive. Because when you think about the peace that it brings, the balance that it brings. It doesn't mean that I'm being silenced at all. It just means that I may not say this at this point in time, because I think there's timing for everything. I think timing is
Absolutely.
everything. I think that that's something that, of course, because it's just in my nature and I am just a straight up alpha woman, period.
Hmm.
It's a constant practice
Yeah.
of having that restraint of saying what you want to say, doing what you want to do.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I always go back to that because I find peace in that. I find balance in that, and I find safety in it too. I really do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that this word has to be talked about more. I think it needs to be broken down, but I think that submission definitely looks different in every relationship, and that's why we can't judge relationship to relationship. That's why we can't judge one marriage to the other because certain people, they're okay with certain things in their relationship, and this works for them, and that works for them. So who are we to judge when people decide that they want to do things a certain way in their relationship, you know?
I absolutely agree wholeheartedly in what you're saying. And and just in our relationship, we have some disagreements on things.
Mhm.
But I think it's very important is that what we learn from certain situations that we have dealt with in our marriage. And that's the
Mhm.
key is, one of the things you used to always say is that, it's not to get so angry where you wake up the next day still mad at what happened yesterday, still mad at what happened last week. And I think in relationship is give and take, but it's understanding is that submissive is both ways. Being
Yeah.
submissive is, but it's never just one way. And I think that's not talked about enough.
I was thinking to myself at one point, well, of course, we may have had the conversation a few times, and I don't really think early on in our marriage we really used the terminology submissive.
Mm-mm.
I think it was just something that was understood. I think it was something that we learned about one another. I think it also had a lot to do with us getting into counseling and just truly figuring out who we were, as a whole. Um, I think that it was part of us getting married early. We got married within 6 months. And so some things we didn't really know about each other. And that's one of the things that I think I didn't know to in its entirety of, I guess, part of your upbringing, part of your personality. And it was nothing like, hey, I run this, I run that, but it's just more so of like your mannerism, I guess I would pick up off on. Or when I would say certain words, you would be like, and I know a lot of what I said or how I would say things stem from, more of my independent single mentality that I still was working through. And that took some time. But once I fell in love with the fact that I could just um, be a boss and focus on all my creative endeavors, um, and not have any type of, I guess, restrictions or submitting to anything or anyone other than myself. When it came down to the relationship, I'm all for it. Like, I am all for being a submissive wife. And I thank you for making that easy, to be honest.
Yeah, it's one of the things about as I was talking about earlier in our on this episode is that submissive is a term that I think a lot of people get it misconstrued. I think they sometimes think automatically in their mind that someone is trying to control them, or someone is being narcissistic. But if you really think about it, submissive is really a gift. It's a gift
Mm,
of love. If you really think about it, submissive to me is a gift of love. It's a gift of serenity. It's a gift of being selfless. It's a gift of compassion. It's a gift of teamwork. It's a gift of camaraderie. And I think not a lot of people look at it that way. And, another analogy I would say about submissive is when Jordan had said in his Hall of Fame speech, and how Scottie Pippen had to play with a dominant figure like Jordan, who is considered an alpha male and very strong and opinionated. But Scottie Pippen learned that he had to be submissive to MJ in order to accomplish the goals that they was able to set. And Jordan had said that, yes, I know I could be really an asshole a lot of times, but in every championship I won, there was Scottie Pippen. And I think if we look at it from a perspective like that, and this is what I want to correlate it in relationship, it's that we need to stop looking at things and start thinking that automatically a submissive is a negative trait. Submissive is a control trait. It's not that. We're changing the narrative with Cuddle with Purpose. Is that submissive means that you understand that there's a purpose for you in the relationship, and y'all are coming together for one common goal to make each other better and be the best versions of yourself.
period. That was literally my point. I literally had that as an analogy when it comes down to playing ball. So, babe, that was perfectly said. Like that was perfection right there.
This is what it's all about. This is what it's all about right here. I want to give a quote by Maya Banks. Maya Banks says, "When a woman submits to a man, it's the most precious gift she can give herself. Unreservedly, the man has to respect and honor that gift above all else. Even if he respects nothing else in the world, he must respect the woman in his care." Not only that, she went on to say, it's his own sworn duty to protect, to honor, and cherish his submissive, to take care of her and provide a safe haven. Someone who would put his own needs above his woman's is no man. Woo!
Man, she got that thing right on
Woo! Woo!
that.
I'm gonna set that right there so people can actually read that again on the screen. While
That's good right there.
if 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 there was a
Say no more.
drop mic moment,
Say no more. Say no
you
more.
see, that's what submissive is, man. That's
But to say that's perfectly said. But it goes back to why we were having this conversation and why women are so triggered by that word. A lot of women don't feel safe. A lot of women don't feel secure.
I agree.
A lot of women don't feel protected and respected.
And what do you think? And what do you think are the contributing factors that's causing that?
It's a multitude of things. It's how they're being handled. And it's how they're being talked to. It's how they're being treated. It's also a part of their own personal life experiences. And because of that, it's a fear factor that comes with that word. A lot of women haven't had the luxury of having a man that respects and honors them and treats them as though they're a constant gift every time they wake up in the morning. It's easy for me to be submissive because you're not just telling me I'm beautiful, but you make me feel that way.
Hmm.
You know, I don't have to look for hugs and kisses. I don't have to tell you to stop yelling at me. I don't have to tell you to get up to take care of me. I don't have to tell you to be a father. I didn't have to tell you to give the doctors permission to perform emergency surgery on my head. I didn't have to tell you to sleep on a cart in the hospital for months next to me and be there with me because I needed you and my son to help me mentally with my recovery journey. A lot of people don't have that luxury, and that's why you have women in today's society that feels like they got to fight because you're already fighting for your place in society when it comes to your careers, and you're fighting because you're already starting behind the eight ball because you probably getting it out of the mud because you're the first generation. And our counterparts, as far as men, they haven't been set up for success. So how can they? They don't even know what submissive means because they didn't come from that. And I'm not talking about a submissive and being controlled, but they didn't come from a household where a wife was protected, a wife was honored, a husband was honored, a husband was protected. I think it's a team thing when I think about the protection of a couple. A wife covers a husband just as well as the husband covering the wife. And that's why the word is looked upon like, why are we bringing that up? Why are we talking about this again? If everything that this woman has listed here is not shown in a relationship, why should somebody be submissive? You should
That's a
be
great point. Yeah.
you should make it easy. It shouldn't be a hard thing.
Hmm. Hmm. Let me ask you this. Let's say to the man that are these things in
Mm-hmm.
this quote,
Mm-hmm.
and he's dealing with a woman that's just strong-headed in her beliefs, and
Mm-hmm.
she does not want to give the gift to be submissive to her man. And that man is doing all the right things,
Mm-hmm.
but she fails to submit. What do you say about women? Because there are women, let's keep it real. There
Right.
are women out here that have a problem with being submissive to a man. Do you agree or do you disagree?
I definitely agree with that wholeheartedly. I think it just has to do with what you can and can't deal with. I think that those are some things that you have to gotta feel out early on, you know? Um, and I feel like if that's something that you can't deal with, maybe that's not the person that you need to be marrying. But if that's something that you can work through and you can find some type of median or see how you both can compromise, then it's something that you guys can work through as you go through the marriage because it's always going to be a give or take. Sometimes it's going to be tug of war.
Every day is not going to be a bed of roses, and you're not going to want to succumb to your significant other's opinion or their thought process or what they feel is the best decision for this particular situation every time. There's always a discussion. We don't agree on everything,
No, we don't.
but we know that we have to get to a place of resolution. So once we've been able to do that, because we got to move on. We can't stay stagnant in the same thing on the same topic for a lifetime. Anybody got time for that? But back to your question, I feel if that's a something that's required, something that you need to have in your relationship, and it's a deal breaker, then that's something you don't want to go up against at all. I don't think you as a man, if that's something that you need in your wife, because I feel like some being submissive also is a way of building your husband's confidence too. It's like allowing him or letting him know that, man, you're doing a good job.
Mhm.
Like that, bitch, you doing a good job. Yeah, you doing a good job. But I think it's like that. That's part of it. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely something that it does comes down to the decision of that man. You have to make that decision because if there's a man out here who wants to have a submissive woman, I think let's say that they're coming in it from a perspective of being loving and doing everything that they're supposed to do as a man the right way, then I
Hmm.
feel there shouldn't be any issues for a woman to be able to be submissive to that man. And I think if the woman refused that, then I think then far as it's part of it's in a man's DNA to lead in a
Mm-hmm.
relationship. Let's let's keep it real. Let's keep it 100 here, because
Hmm.
what we're not going to do is say things that how we don't truly feel. I feel it is in a man's DNA, even from a biblical perspective. A man was designed to lead. You see, if any of my Bible scholars out here, people who know anything about the Word of God, is that there was God,
Hmm.
then God made he made the all earth, all the
Hmm.
animals and everything like that, but then he made man.
Hmm.
And then he said it's not good for man to be alone.
Hmm.
So what he did is he made created a woman from a
Hmm.
man's rib, and then that's where you have a woman who is supposed to be the helpmeet to the man.
Hmm.
And see, that's something we have to look at from a perspective. He didn't make the woman and then took a rib from out the woman and then created the man and say the man's supposed to be the helpmeet to the woman. And that's one of the things that we want to keep it in perspective, that it's designed for a man to lead. And let me make sure I say this: if the man is leading the right way, okay?
Right, because he can lead y'all straight to hell. So
Yeah,
we
yeah,
got
yeah. So
we
I
got
want
to
to
make
make
sure.
sure, because you know how I'm big on that, TT, is that people are trying to chop up your words, man. So you have to communicate effectively, because sometimes people try to miscrew your words for their own gain or their own benefit. So we're talking in layman terms. If the man is leading the right way, it is designed for a man to be the leader of their household, not the other way around.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, when you talk about submissive, we want to always be, cognizant of the fact is that, changing the narrative of what submissive, the word submissive mean. Submissive is not controlling. submissive is not being narcissistic. Submissive is a gift. I think that was a great quote. It's a gift. It truly is a gift. And let me go back to sharing our screen right here. A truly submissive woman is to be treasured, cherished, and protected, for it is only she who can give a man the gift of dominance. Whew, my God. Come on, my man. Come on. Come on, man. You see that? See that, ladies and gentlemen, and especially for my women. This if this quote right here
Hmm.
does not put what submissive is all about, then guess what? I'm gonna say this, TT. That woman just don't want to be submissive.
Okay.
I'm just gonna leave it right there. You can take it how you want to take it, but at the end of the day, there should be no more arguments saying that from a woman, submissive. What you mean by being submissive? When you watch the Cuddle with Purpose video, I want you to share this video with every girlfriend you know, every woman you know that you respect, so that way they can actually understand what submissive really is.
You know, just listening to everything that you just said and what you just read, it just really wraps up everything that I had to say, to be honest. I'm just like, this is it, because it's a gift to one another. It's like, for the man, he needs to provide this, and this, and this in order for him to receive this.
Mhm.
So when the man, if women understand that part, if this man of yours is providing the security, he's providing the peace, he's providing the love, he's providing that protection, he's cherishing you, he's doing all of the things, then what is the issue with being a submissive wife or a submissive significant other?
Yeah, wrapped up in just like that. So
Yeah.
most definitely, this is what submissive is all about, and with Cuddle with Purpose, these are the topics of conversation that we want to continue to have, so that way we can, just educate and just come from a different perspective to get us thinking differently, you know, thinking outside of the norms, thinking outside of your emotional trauma, thinking outside of what you have been through in your past, because we do understand and know is that your past or your emotional traumas can bring up triggers in the relationship. I've had some emotional traumas within our relationship from the past, but understanding and knowing is that you can continue to work on yourself, and y'all can come together being the best versions of yourself if you are committed to doing your role within a relationship, within the marriage, and moving forward in a positive way.
Yeah. I like when you said that. It made me think about a conversation I was having with a friend recently, and we were just talking about relationships in general, and how, you always hear the terminology, don't come into a relationship with baggage, and don't come in a relationship with issues. But the truth of the matter is that we all are going to have a duffel bag or two.
Woo.
And if you decide you're willing to lock hands with someone, then you're going to be there to help them unpack that luggage. And some of those things that you unpack, you're going to throw away. Some things you're going to dissect, and you're going to look at and see how you can build on that. And others, you might send that thing back the way it came from. You just might do that. But just
Yeah.
know that you're going to grow in whatever area you nurture. And if that's an area that you nurture as far as nurturing one another, because I feel like you both are going to submit to each other in some way or some form,
Right.
then it's going to make it easier as the time passes because you're going to build trust. And I think as you build trust, then submission will grow.
Absolutely. Well said, TT. Well said. Us being married for over 6 years now is definitely something that we definitely celebrate. It's something that we are very proud of. It's something that we just appreciate the journey. More than anything, appreciating the journey, knowing where we were in the beginning and where we are now, and how we both have matured in our love for one another. We both have matured in the way we communicate with one another. Are we perfect? Hell no.
Far from it.
But are we in love? Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And one thing, remember what we said when we said that the one thing that what we've loved about our love is understanding.
Yeah. Understand.
Understanding. And remember what the scripture said in the word of God. It said, and the peace of God, which passes all understanding.
Understand.
See, people, I don't think some people really understand the power of that. It's that even when you wrong, God still love you. Even when you wrong, God still shows grace. Even when we were made in sin, he still gave up his life for us. See, that's that type of love, man, that when you're connected with someone who loves you unconditionally, knowing that you could
Mhm.
be jacked up in some areas, knowing that you can have some crooked edges, knowing that
Oh,
sometimes they
no
can say,
edges.
Negro, listen, man, listen, listen, man. I advise you to get a person that's going to love you unconditionally. Remember when TD Jakes had said one time in his sermon, he said, let me tell y'all something about love. Is that you need to ask yourself the question, can you love this person when they're at their worst?
Mm. Or even better, if nothing never changes about them,
Woo.
could you still be with them?
These are gems, man. I hope y'all taking notes. These are gems. These are gems, man. And all of this is correlating to submissive. These are things that, are you willing to be submissive to the person that you choose to move forth in the marriage?
Hmm.
And that's on both ends.
Both.
That's
Both.
on
It's a
both ends. Are you willing to be
two-way street.
submissive to their emotions? Are you willing to be submissive to their ways?
Hmm.
You have to
Hmm.
you have to understand. Don't go in there trying to change a person, because if you do that, you will fail.
Fail.
So in my closing argument, I would say submissive is a two-way street. Let me say that again. Submissive is a two-way street. It's never one way.
Mhm.
You have to be submissive on both sides, submissive for the man and submissive for the woman.
Mhm.
When you come into a relationship, you're a one.
Yeah.
You're a unit.
Yeah.
When you come into a relationship, you're a one. And when you're coming together, is learning and mastering the technique of give and take. Give and take. And
Mhm.
also, as you are being the best version of yourself and constantly and being consistent of improving yourself every single day, naturally it's going to actually make you a better person with who you will. That's how it should be. And
Mhm.
I feel is very important that you look at the personality of the person that you with. You evaluate their personality. These are
Yeah.
things within the dating process that you should be made aware of, is how they feel with being submissive. And I think with women, I don't feel that, some women don't have a problem being submissive as long as they feel they're being submissive to the right person. And I
Yeah.
also feel on the opposite end is that it could be a trigger word because you don't really know what submissive truly means. And
Mhm.
submissive is not all about the man being in control over a woman. Submissive is knowing when to lead and knowing when to be passive. That's on
Yeah.
both sides. It's
Mhm.
about learning who to lead. And I think we come into that spectrum is that, and see, that's how I saw how my dad was. It's like, it's always the man. The man is the head and not the tail. And all this thing is either my way or the highway. But
Mhm.
as I got older, as I got mature,
Mhm.
I understood that's not how marriage works.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So I strongly urge is that when you're talking about using the word submissive, is that you understand it's not all about the man. It's about both the man and the woman, and knowing when to take the lead and knowing when the woman should take the lead and knowing when you should listen on both sides of the spectrum and moving forward from there.
Agreed.
Yeah. So we appreciate y'all. Definitely, if you like this video, we want you to put in the comments of what you feel submissive mean to you. Engage with us on this video. Let us know. Do you feel that there are benefits of being submissive to a man? Do you feel that there are benefits of being submissive to a woman? And we want you to like, subscribe on our YouTube channel, Cuddle with Purpose. And we
Mhm.
want you to hit that bell notification so that way you can be notified when we're uploading new content as well. So that's all we have for y'all. Y'all take care and be blessed.
Later, y'all.